So, I heard you want to know how I make keys for my figures. Well, that's a good question. I'd like to know that too. I gotta admit, I don't think Nomad, the program that I use, is the best program to learn how to make keys in your figures. But, you asked me how I make keys for figures. Not the best way to make keys for figures, so you've been tricked. I'll show you how I make my keys and why I make my keys in those certain ways. And we'll talk about what I think about as I'm parting a figure too. Remember, it's always okay to make mistakes because you learn something from your mistakes. And trust me, I've learned a lot. I am very learned. So, this is my figure. And I've already turned it into parts that I feel are appropriate. I could have broken it down more, but I didn't really think that was necessary. I could have parted out the legs and the individual hands, his head from his body, and all kinds of stuff. But this is all I thought was necessary for now. Parting out a figure not only makes it easier to print, but it makes it easier to paint. It's definitely something to keep in mind when you're parting out a figure, is the reason why you're doing it. So first off, I start off with the part that I'm going to key, and I make sure it's going to fit flush up against whatever part it's keying into. And in this case, it's the arm. So I'll duplicate the body, and then I Boolean cut the arm to make sure it sits flush up against the body. A cylinder peg is the peg I use most often, and it is my favorite type. I feel like it's a lot more forgiving and easier to manage if it doesn't quite fit right. So I get the cylinder and I get it into the size and place where I want it to be. We don't want it to be too deep or too short. If it's too deep, it's easier to break, and if it's too short, it's not going to do its job. I then duplicate the cylinder and make it ever so slightly bigger. I typically just eyeball it. I want there to be a noticeable amount of space between the hole I cut and the part. If you just cut the hole to the same size as the peg, it will not fit at all. It will be way too tight to install, let alone be able to pull the part in and out. You need to make sure you see that gap and always clean your prints really well, especially the pegs in the holes. The last thing you do is you need to merge the key to the part, and then whammo bammo, you have a keyed part. Sometimes you can just use the part itself as the key. Like here, I already have the arm stuck into the body, so I just duplicate the arm and use the arm upscaled to cut the hole. This isn't necessarily pretty, and I don't use this method very often, but sometimes it's necessary, so it does happen. For the pot, I used a square peg. I don't like square pegs very much. I think they're really unforgiving, and I break them a lot. Like, if they're even slightly too tight, I snap them. For the pot, I used Greg's hair to cut the edge of the pot out to make sure that it'll fit on his head. Then I placed the square peg the same way I did the cylinder. This time I made the square peg have even more of a gap because I'm very afraid of these square pegs. Also, in this instance, it's not really there to hold anything up. It's just kind of there to make sure it stays in the right spot, so I don't really mind if the peg is a little loose. It's not exactly fighting gravity. Then there's Mr. Frog here. He has to be part of the keying process because his little booty has to be cut out of Greg's pants. I also put a little cylinder peg in here just for good measure. I didn't think his little frog butt cheeks were going to be good enough to hold his body in. I basically just duplicate Mr. Frog and cut him out of it. I don't change his shape at all. I will admit sometimes this doesn't necessarily work. You have to make sure there's no undercuts with the figure that's being cut into the other figure. You basically want it to be smooth and round and not change shape as it goes down. Like, you don't want it to be bigger at the base. I also did the same thing with Greg into the pumpkin, but honestly I think Greg's little butt cheeks and his pants are big enough to be a decent key. I did still add the peg though, because I felt he was leaning a little far forward and I'd rather be safe than sorry. So as you can see, this is my freshly printed keyed figure. Ooh, ah, ee. Let's see how these parts fit together, shall we? Ooh. Oh, that's probably the wrong way. No. Oh, there's a thing in the way. Hold on. Ooh. It's not bad. It's loose, but I expected that. Wow. Am I good at this? Should probably make sure the holes are cleared. Ooh, that's really snug. It might just be a little snug, but it's easy to fix. I'm gonna grab a razor blade and kind of like clean it out a little bit. Ah, the hole is a bit sideways, but that's fine. That is very snug. It's a little more snug than I would have hoped. I should have put more space in that one, but that's fine. Let's check out Mr. Froggy and his little butt. Look at his silly little legs, his silly little arms. Oh my goodness. Mr. Frog is very loose. It's a good thing he has a little arm that doesn't fit. Oh my, that doesn't fit at all. Did I cut it with the wrong arm? Because that's crazy how little that fits. That's okay. I can carve it out a little bit. Oh, maybe there was an undercut that I didn't notice. Maybe not an undercut, but basically like the part that was inside the figure was skinnier than the part that's on the outside of the figure. Okay, it takes a little bit of force, but you can get in there. Kind of like get your little frog booty in there. Nice. Ooh, that's nice and snug. Look at that. There we go. Look at that. It's a little loosey-goosey, but that's okay. So I'm gonna glue all the parts together anyway. There you go. That's how you part a figure. That's how I part a figure. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. If you like my content and you're interested in supporting my channel, please like and subscribe. You can also support my channel by clicking my affiliate link down below to download Lychee Slicer. I exclusively use Lychee Slicer to support and slice all of my models. So if you're in the market for a slicer, I highly recommend Lychee Slicer. They also currently have a Black Friday sale where you can get 25% off your annual subscription. The promo code is down below in my description. And remember, if you're ever interested in any of my models, please check out my Colds 3D, which you can also find in my description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye bye.